All right, let's get started. Tension, throw. Chung-yi. Good. Okay, let's just start jogging on the spot. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick on a couple of obvious ones. Just looking at so many, it's an opportunity to watch people perform this that I'm not used to seeing, and it just reminds me of the variations that people go through and that they have. It's I love it, but it's important for me that you understand why you do what you do. Okay, this is going to be something that will be relevant to Taekwondo and not necessarily belt relevant. So stances. I'm not going to get too involved in stances, but because I know there'll be something coming up this week and it'll be great to listen to. But your strength of your stances is very critical, and they're all designed quite cleverly to give you the best optimum structure given the technique you perform. Now, I want you to get into walking stance for me. No matter which leg forward. In fact, no. Let's everybody get right leg forward. Then I can talk with relevant numbers and it'll make sense. So everyone, right leg forward. Okay. In front of you is 12 o'clock. Your right leg is perhaps now pointing to 1 o'clock, and 2 o'clock through on 6 o'clock behind you. So you got the idea. So you stood on a clock face. Now, a walking stance is designed to be a front stance. So and it's a front stance because your opponent is in front. Your opponent is never at the side. It's never at 45 degrees. It's never at 90 degrees. That doesn't happen. Okay? So that's the first thing to get into your mind. So you have a side front walking stance where you're slightly side facing. We do that in a low block, middle block where our hips are turned slightly outwards. Okay. So just turn your hips into doing a middle outer forearm block now. So you're now going to turn your hips to maybe 11 o'clock, maybe 10:30. That angle there. Okay, and that's perfectly acceptable to apply your hips there and maintain structure. And equally, if you've got good hip flexibility, if you rotate the hips now to go to 1 o'clock without moving the stance, okay, you've got equally a reasonably good, strong stance, subject to the technique. And that's the key. So let's imagine for a minute, blue is in front. We've got, for those of you that are old enough to have the dial that turned on your stereo, it went red when it was really loud and blue when it was quiet or hot and cold. We're going to go blue is in front. Blue is safe. Okay? 90 degrees at 9 o'clock and at 3 o'clock is red. That's very, very weak. Okay? So if I have anybody with a single finger could push on my shoulder from a 90-degree angle and I will fall over. There will be no resistance in that at all. They push at the center of my chest and I could stand there all day. I would end up breaking their finger. So with that in mind, you're blue at the front and you're going to start moving out to the side. And you can try this with a partner. When you get to a point, you will feel, if they're just generally pushing against you, you'll feel when that stance loses its structure. And that's about 10:30, 11 o'clock. Okay? It's about 1:30, 1 o'clock. After that, when you get to 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, the stance is now going from a blue bar and it's slowly fading into a red, okay, until it's bright red at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And just try and have that as a visual reference. There's your stance power bar. Blue perfectly in front, and then as it goes away, as it goes wide, it'll start turning red, and then when it gets to 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, it's red. Now with that thought in mind, understand that there is nothing in Taekwondo that allows you to do a technique in walking stance off at the side, 45-degree angles, okay? Doesn't exist. They're all side front techniques. That's a subject we can get into another time. In fact, I think a couple of weeks ago there was a bit of that on that video, so by all means have a look on the channel. So with that thought in mind, when you do your circular block, don't take that arm out too wide, okay? As soon as you take that arm out too wide, you're now relying at the point of that technique having a strong stance, and it hasn't got a strong stance. So if you're saying, and this is your get out clause that I would offer, if you're saying that my circular block finishes at 45 degrees because my technique is completed, then that's fine. Okay, you can argue that that's a follow-through. But the point of impact that requires its most structure, and again, do this with a partner. You get them, get into a reverse block, get them to push resistance against your wrist, and then start slowly going out. And then you'll find at one point it loses it. Your stance loses it, your whole structure loses it. That is your limit. Some of you will be different. Okay, some of you have got good core muscles, you'll be able to go a bit wider. But most of you will have a short limit. So try and remember the circular block isn't a wide block unless you're following through. The turn, okay, you come into your elbow thrust and you turn and you perform these two techniques here. First thing to think about is you still need to get body drop. So a lot of people, to get body drop, I don't know whether you can see this on my heels, but they go up, down, okay? And they perform body drop by lifting heels 1, 2. Now, whilst they're performing body drop, it's not very efficient body drop. So what I want you to have a go at doing is, when you're coming round, when you come up to this chamber here, you're going to be straight-legged, okay? You know, you're almost going to have your right heel up for the first block. And you're going to pull the hand across. And as you pull the hand across, drop and bend the knees momentarily. So you may not see this in my baggy trousers, but I'm trying to, just a little flex, a little drop in the knee spring. Okay, so I'm here. So I'm not coming up on my heel, my one foot is flat. Get on the blue mat, I don't need to change these mats around so it's obvious. So one foot is flat and the other foot is heel up, and I'm dropping, momentary knee drop, and then back to normal position. So just have a few goes of that. From the elbow thrust, just allow your hip to twist, don't let both heels come up, just your leading, your middle arm is your primary block. Okay, so we're doing a side front block and a low outer forearm block. Okay, and remember that it's a side front block, it's not a middle block, side front block, and then a low outer forearm block. Now, when we're doing that, it's the side front block that is our primary technique. Okay, this is our primary technique. So that's the knee we're going to lift, that's the heel we're going to lift. Okay, yeah, up, and it's just a knee drop back to normal. So I'm just dropping maybe a couple of inches, if that, here, and then I'm back up, here, and back up. And the knee that I'm lifting, let me get back into my foot space, is the middle or the side front block, that's that leg, that's the heel I'm lifting. Okay, just have a few goes at that. And I'll talk about the side front block in a second. Let me just watch you doing that for a second. Interesting technique, very nice. Let me just go through that. All right, I'll stay reasonably close so you can see. We're doing a side front block. Okay, it's not a middle block. Okay, it's not a middle block. It's a side front block. Now the difference between the two, there are two differences. A side front block finishes on my external full body line. Okay, which are my shoulders. The external points of my shoulders. This is the full body line, and that block finishes at that point. Obviously, if I'm in 45 degrees, it's then on the quarter line, but it's a full face in, okay? So it's going to go out to that side of the shoulder. Now, this gets a bit complicated, so you just got to watch this. The mechanics of the arm, I'll try and do this if I bend forward a bit, so you're looking at it from the top. If I now turn my shoulders 45 degrees, my forearm is in line with my outer shoulder. But that's actually now, because I'm 45 degrees, that's my quarter line, okay? If I now turn square and kept it there, okay, it's going to be, the blocking tool is going to be on my quarter line, which comes down the side of my head, okay? Now, that clearly isn't going to work in this technique, okay? So you have to move this hand the width of your wrist out. Okay, and I'm just talking about approximate. you know, my wrist is bigger than average. But roughly the width of your wrist, make it that much wider. And that will bring that, okay, from the quarter line, which it would be if my shoulders were 45 degrees, to the full outside line here. But because we've gone out, okay, we also now have to go from 90 degrees to 80 degree bend, okay? And for a long time, I thought, why do they do that? Why have they gone from 90 degrees to 80 degrees? It's too specific. And it was at the time I started getting into body mechanics and all the rest of it, that I started realizing a lot of this stuff. But ultimately, the point I'm making is that if I move my hand from this front position and I move it out to the side, okay, I'm moving it in a weaker plane. The further that arm goes out, the weaker it gets, okay? So the further the arm goes out, the weaker it gets. The way that I compensate that strength is as it goes out, I flex the arm, okay? So now, if it starts here at 90 degrees, okay, and as I swing round to the side, and I'll turn as I'm doing it, okay, I'm flexing. Here is a tight, let's say a 40 degrees. That's still very strong. 90 degrees is very weak. Here it's still very strong. So by moving our hands slightly outwards, all it's being said, and it's not saying, oh, we've got to get the protractor out and just check 90 degrees and 80 degrees. It's not, we're not going to split those hairs. What it's saying is, if your hand moves out slightly, your structure has to change to compensate. So by moving out as a side front technique, we also bring the hand, so we move the hand outwards and we bring it inwards. And it just compensates for that weakening of a structure, okay? A little bit probably deep for red belts. Apologies if you're going, oh my God, I'm confused. PM, we can talk about it in a bit more detail. But ultimately, when you do that, it's a knee spring, and it finishes here, not here. And it finishes slightly closer to you, not at 90 degrees. Okay? It's here, not there. Have a few goes, go.